Hello and welcome to my channel. I'd like to introduce you to painting Christmas logs, something I've done for many years and gives people enormous pleasure. Painting Christmas logs. So these are kiln dried logs from the local shop. They're birch logs, but any log would do. And I've drawn round them with a pencil to get the shape and give me a rough idea of what I can put on the surface before I start. Don't really want to make a mistake. I've got a selection of not too precious brushes and acrylic paint. The answer with acrylic paint is to wash the brushes twice. A budget set of acrylics, because these are just decoration on wood. It's not worth using very expensive paint, but it'd be interesting to give them a test run. And I'm just going to add a jar of water to mix it and some tissue, and I'm ready to go. I've used a size 8 acrylic brush to start me off with the candle, just to fill in the sketch to see how it works. And I've used 3 colours so far, the white, the red and the yellow, and then 4th colour I've used some beige to represent the log, just to make sure that what I'm doing is going to work. It's always good if you're doing something other than a piece of paper to have a test piece. You can sort out your fault finding and make sure that it's going to work, and then transfer it with more freedom. Put there to get the spacing right. So I'm now going to go straight for the log. Obviously at this stage I'm only going to do one side. So I've got my paints. I'm just going to, same thing, just work out roughly where to put the flame. You've got to do this very carefully, make sure you don't get a splinter while you're doing it. It's easy to go over it a second time, but if you just get the shape of it. Leave a little bit of gap for the flame, it won't necessarily be sitting completely on top of the candle, and the candle won't necessarily be completely flat. But what you want it is to fit in proportion to the log, which is why it's good to have a drawing to start with. So we give it a bit of a wavy top, some drips going down it, and I'm going to finish it short because I want to put some holly in at the bottom. It's just very, very thin at the moment. I'll go over it again, but I've claimed the space. I've done one coat on the log, and it's soaked in quite a long way, but you've got to adjust your work for each separate piece of wood. You don't know what you're going to get. It's all part of the fun. I'll just quickly go down with some more, making it slightly uneven, drippy. I've got my sketch for a reference, and I'm going to put holly at the bottom. I'll put some shadow around the drips. It's always worth having a reference, and then you can just make sure that you're still in proportion. I'll just tint the flame a bit more. I haven't got orange, I'm making it out of red and yellow, and then I'll highlight it as I go. Just leave it like that to dry for a minute and get a different brush to do the holly. This is a number 8 brush, which is quite chunky. Just washing it well because I don't want the acrylic to stick the hairs together. And going on to a smaller one, which I'm going to use the greens that I've got and just tint them a little bit. Make it quite runny to start with, and I've done a sketch of some holly just so that I've got a reference, which is easier when you're doing it on wood. This time I'm going to do a Nutcracker Soldier, so I'm just going to mark the top of the log and the bottom of the log and the sides, and mark the point. I'm probably going to use this piece, so I'll just mark that for this piece. So now I'm going to have a go at the Nutcracker. I've done a very, very quick 1 minute sketch just to try and work out the proportions of how tall to make the soldier. So what I'm going to do is mark the top of the hat, the bottom of the hat, the head, end of the tunic, the knees, ankles and feet. Now I'm going to just quickly draw it from the top, just roughly to try and get it on the log. It will develop with the paint. So I've got the hat, I've got the head, hair, shoulders. Put the tunic in first before the arms. Just match it up. How far is it going to go? It's going to go to about there. Looks like I've missed all my pencil lines, but they're only a guide. And then the tunic goes out again. So now the arms come out further. Stop short of the tunic. Leave a gap for underneath so it emphasises the waist. Hands. Little V at the front. A belt. I think soldiers should have some buttons. And some decoration. Then the legs. Knees. Change in uniform for the calves, which are quite muscular as he's a soldier. And boots. And he's filled the log nearly. So the face, we will do the eyebrows, eyes, a lovely moustache, nose, and traditional soldier mouth. Some rosy cheeks, and then a crown on his hat. So start in the middle for the pointy bit and go out. And I think it'd be nice to have a decoration around the top. So I'm just going to use that as a basis to put on the log. Very quickly, I've just copied him onto the log, just in paint, no drawing at all with pencil, and then I can work from it. The paint should develop your picture. It's just a question of using the space well. The Nutcracker is starting to develop. It's going to take a couple of coats of paint to get the uniform right, but it's on his way. Whilst the soldier is drying, I'm going to do a traditional round Christmas pudding on the next big log. But whilst everything else is drying, I've just done 2 spherical round Christmas puddings. Very dark brown. I'll show fruit on them in the next coat of paint, and the white on top for cream pouring down, which I will put a more even line on when it's a little bit drier. But each log is a different shape and lends itself to a different picture. And you can put them round the fireplace or by the front door or on a garden wall. They're good, versatile ornaments. It's almost impossible to draw on this piece of wood. But it doesn't matter because it's only a suggestion. So I'm starting with the head and the body going back. And the body goes round in a circle. And there's a couple of wings, pointy bits sticking out. And the bottom of the robin is slightly grey, not all red. Just put a few colours on to get the idea. Doesn't matter if it skips over the wood. Now I'm going to move to what it's standing on, which in this case is a fork handle. log is rolling a little bit, so I'm going to steady it with one hand. I haven't sandpapered this at all, so you have to be careful you don't get splinters. My fingers are away from the brush end and from the log. If you're doing it with children, you might want to sand some of the logs first, or even wrap them in some kitchen roll. Just put some kitchen roll where you're going to put the brush. You can stick it on with sellotape or a bit of string. I'm going to put snow on top of the fork handle. I've got to leave room for the robin's feet. I'll just do it roughly. I'm going to put a tree in the background with some snow on it. So the bottom half of the branch will be showing, but the top half will have snow. So I'm just using a dark green. Just to give an indication. My robin's drying and I'm just going to do a sleigh. You can use both sides of the logs. This one's also got Father Christmas drying on the other side. So I've just drawn the sleigh very roughly in pencil, partly because I don't draw sleighs very often. And what I'm going to do is use the white paint to give the snow. And that will leave the shape of the sleigh. I'm using a bigger brush to do this, and the bigger carton of acrylic paint. The other tubes, I've done about 10 logs and they're only half used. Does go a long way. I'm being generous with the snow. Might need 2 coats, but I'll try and do it with one and leave the room for the parcels. I'll vary the size of the parcels a little bit more when I get to them. When you're doing this, it's best to have a couple on the go at once because the acrylic will dry at room temperature. I'm covering mine in tin foil when I leave it. I've left it overnight and I've only got that much on the tin foil, so it did work quite well. I can always add some pine trees to it if I want to, or a house or something. But that'll just breaks up the sleigh from the snow. Now I've got a dark red here, it's sort of crimsony red that I'm going to do the sleigh, partly because it's a tube of acrylic that I haven't used yet. Ring all the changes with the colours. It's difficult to get a hard line when you're dealing with wood, but I can go back again. I'll just get the first little bit in. Now I'm going to leave that to dry for 5-10 minutes and come back to it. This log's had one coat and it's looking a bit pale. I brought out a bigger quantity of white paint than the little set I had. White is what I'm using most of. And just a tiny bit of water on the brush, going down, making it more dominant, but going with the shape of the candle around the top. The second coat will just make certain things more dominant. Put some drips down there. I have a drippy candle. You don't have to paint all the log, you could just put the candle on, but it makes it stand out if there's a dark background. these are birch logs, which are quite light anyway. And I'm just going to make the flame a little bolder. Washing the brush out. And just try and pick up some yellow. I'll probably wait till that dries to make it bolder again. But I've got a good start. And then a little bit of dark around the edge, and that'll stand out nicely. You can make the logs any theme you like. I'm going to put a camel on this one. I like camels from a safe distance. So I've got a bonfire. We often have camels in biblical things, camels and donkeys. So I'm just going to make a fire in the desert for it to, I like to keep my camels warm. Put some brown logs on and then get the yellow and the red together and just see if I can put in some flames. Might have to have a second go at that. And a little bit of smoke coming out, which I'm just making light grey to show against the night sky. And I'll feather it out a bit. Now the night sky I've used blue and black. The desert is a similar colour to the log, but it doesn't matter. So the way that I can highlight things now is to put a few darks on. So we've got a saddle here, camel saddle. And he's got a bridle on, which is a job to do all these bits. So I'm going to see if I can go a little bit dark around him so that other bits will show up just a tiny bit darker. If you want to make something look lighter, if you put dark next to it, it works a treat. So I will now go back to the original sand colour, which was a yellow ochre, and merge them in. But it'll just have a little bit of brown near the camel, which will make him or her, we don't know what it is yet, stand out a bit. That's probably going to have to dry, so while it's drying I can put a little bit more emphasis on the night sky. The camel's nearly finished. It's in the dark night sky. I don't want to put in too much detail. It's just a suggestion of a camel. What I could possibly do is make its eye a little bit darker. And I have got 2 moose in the snow. You can have anything that you want. This one's got a cracker on the side, Christmas cracker. Another robin that's nearly finished, a candle, and I'm now going to move back to the Nutcracker.